What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Thanks for tuning in. With Dan Courtwright, I am Sean Kellerman. We all know what week it is. KU against Mizzou. Saturday at 2:30 for Roe Field in Columbia. We're going to have extended coverage here on Rock Chalk Sports and KansasNation.com all week, so make sure you check us out. And we're going to get into that here in the opening segment. We're talking a little Mizzou offense against KU defense here in the opening segment, and then we're going to hear from Lance Liepold, his press conference in full, previewing the Tigers a little bit earlier this week. You'll have a chance to listen to Coach here very shortly. And then at 4:40, we are going to be joined by Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com and the Lawrence Journal-World. Henry will come in studio, get a chance to get his thoughts on the win over Wagner. And I want to ask him as well, Dan, about any ill will that he has toward any rivals over in the California area. And if he knew anything about this rivalry growing up out west. So I'll be interested to hear what he says.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I know he's obviously well ingrained in it now, but I don't want him to compare this to UC Berkeley versus UC San Diego. It's not the same thing. By the way, I heard you had a little run-in with Henry the other weekend, potentially, I guess?
We did over at Johnny's Tavern, North Lawrence.
You bought him a drink, didn't you? Was it the Haley Bieber kombucha?
I
was
did.
that what it was?
I don't think that's what it was. It was something in a can. I know it that much. But yeah, I saw Henry over at Johnny's Tavern North. Appreciate everything they do over there, and he was enjoying himself a beverage. So I went ahead and told our server that she can add one to my tab. But appreciate Henry coming on. He's one of our great friends and a recurring guest here on our show. So appreciate that. Next, after that, we're going to hear from a couple of Jayhawks, Taylor Davis and Deshawn Hanika. They are going to preview the Tigers as well. We spoke to them yesterday. And then to close out the show today, we're talking a little Royals baseball. We'll update you on everything going on with the Royals and some college football week 1 picks as well. And no, I did not forget about the most important segment, and that's not a stab at Henry, but tell us about the KU Mailbag.
KU Mailbag, by the people, for the people. Every single Wednesday, you send us questions. We try to answer it to the best of our ability. I know you hate it when I say that because it is to the best of our ability. Sometimes it's an educated guess, right? We don't have the cold, hard facts sometimes, right? But yeah, KU Mailbag. You still have time to send us questions, by the way, on Twitter at the Kansas Nation. You can send it to us on Facebook, the Kansas Nation on there. Also check out all of our stuff on YouTube as well at the Kansas Nation on YouTube. That's where we're going to be posting all of our shows. Also shout out to KCTE ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM up in Kansas City for hosting the show today. Really appreciate that. But yeah, my favorite segment of the week, because it's by the people and it's for the people, it's KU Mailbag.
At the Kansas Nation on Twitter, like we said. Also, if you are in the Lawrence area, come say hey to us on Friday. We are going to be out at Hy-Vee and doing our show from 4 to 6 there. That'll be very exciting because about an hour after we get off the air, we're going to be watching Chiefs football.
That's right.
Chiefs and Chargers in Brazil. We're going to have extended sports coverage regarding everything going on in Kansas City and the Lawrence area, but certainly some Chiefs talk these next couple days as well, as the Chiefs went winless in the preseason. That means nothing, and we're expecting them to win the AFC West and perhaps get to their 8th consecutive AFC Championship game. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Certainly hope so. Did you see Jason McIntyre, by the way, say that the Chiefs aren't even a playoff team this year?
Yeah, but that's happened by somebody or somebody's every year since Mahomes got here. This is the year they fall off.
Yeah, somebody doubts the Chiefs, and then every single year the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, and they say, "Oh, who doubted the Chiefs? We all knew it was going to be the Chiefs." We got receipts, buddy. We got receipts. Yeah. We know who's been talking trash. So excited to get it going, especially against an AFC West opponent. It's going to be a lot of fun down there in Brazil.
Yeah, it should be. We will not be in attendance, but we'll be talking about it here on Rock Chalk Sports. KU Volleyball, quick update. Of course, they have had a tough start in terms of losing 3 of their first 4 matches, all in 5 sets. They're about to be 2-3, though, improving on 1-3. They're about to close out Bowling Green right now in West Lafayette. Most recently, I saw 21-13 in the 4th set. KU was leading 2-1. Bowling Green, obviously not a top 25 team, but KU, who only dropped from 14 to 15 after that 1-3 start because their strength of schedule is so big, they are likely going to close that out and improve to 2-3. They're going to have 2 more opportunities again in West Lafayette to pick up nice wins, including potentially, Dan, a chance to knock off the Boilermakers. But it's been a tough season because you've only had 5-set matches to this point for Matt Ulmer in his first squad, and you'd like to at least go 2-2. And if that happened, you would have a top 15 win under your belt. Unfortunately, 0-3 against those top 15 teams, but potentially learning experiences moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the AVCA notices this, right? Because if you look at Kansas's record, it's not good. But obviously, if you look at what happened in those games against 3 different top 15 teams, including the reigning national champion in Penn State, going to 5 sets, barely losing, that's obviously worth something. So it only knocked KU down to 15th from 14th. Actually, KU had just updated on the StatCast. KU did beat Bowling Green 3-1, 25-14 in the 4th set. So that broke that 5-set streak that Kansas had. So they got one in 4 sets against Bowling Green, heading to West Lafayette. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk KU football. If you saw our video a little earlier today with the Don Fambro picture previewing the show, then I hope you're as pumped about this game on Saturday as we are. Interesting, we were doing a little research on the Mizzou official athletics page before the show, Dan, and noticed that when they posted their videos of press conferences from the coaches and players, they say preview Kansas in lowercase the K. So it doesn't take much to get us our blood boiling just a little bit, but that's kind of how this rivalry is, right? And you're reminded of the hatred that's involved.
I am reminded of the hatred that's involved. On their official website, mind you, this isn't the Mizzou burners, right? This isn't Tamar Bates burner guy. This is the official Mizzou website. They have Kansas in all caps except for the K. That is the most petty thing I've ever seen. Now, granted, people at Kansas, they're putting X's over all the M's on campus, right? So I love the fact that they're doing that.
It's like Ohio State.
Yes. If you have an M on your car or in your name, get rid of it. If your name is Matt, no, not this week. You go by at.
Sean Kellerman.
Sean Kellerman.
Yeah.
You know, I've been blessed by the grace of God and 2 smart parents to not have an M in any of my names. So I feel very good about that. That would be a stain on my legacy, I think. But if you have an M, if you see an M, put an X over it. If you, like I said, if your name starts with an M, Mordecai, you're Ordekai. Okay. Yeah. Maddie, you're Addy. All right, we don't play with that. So if the official Mizzou website is going to be this petty, then Kansas needs to be this petty. We need to be this petty.
You know who doesn't have a W in their name is Joe Courtwright, former friend of Chris Courtwright.
That's
back
right.
in the day.
Also, not related.
Courtwright spelled differently. I won't get over that. But as you said, they would use that to pick up chicks, as only Chris Courtwright
say that they were
knows how to do.
Long lost brothers and try to pick up chicks at the bar. Didn't work.
Yeah, did not work. How about that? Hey, all right, Mizzou 1-0, of course, heading into week 2. KU 2-0. Mizzou's victory. I don't know if you had a chance to tune in at all last week, Dan. 61-6 over an outmanned Central Arkansas team, the Bears. And, we saw mostly Bo Pribula, and he was really good. And you could talk more about the quarterback situation as we talk about the Mizzou offense. But Pribula, 23 of 28, 283 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously a guy that Andy Kotelnicki knows a little bit, the former offensive coordinator for Kansas, now the offensive coordinator at Penn State, had Bo Pribula a little bit, and hard to argue with his numbers. Yeah, it was against an FCS team, but still very impressive. And then another transfer, Ahmad Henry, 10 carries for 100 yards. So not surprising seeing these impressive stats when it's Mizzou rather, against an FCS team in Central Arkansas, but still eye-popping knowing that they're a team that's going to be able to put up some points.
Yeah, I mean, their offense, their rushing offense is really, really good. And Bo Pribula is that kind of guy who can really do it on his feet, right? We thought that there was going to be kind of a quarterback battle heading in with Bo Pribula as well as Sam Horn. Sam Horn wound up getting hurt. Now, you have Matt Zollers behind him. We saw a little bit of Matt Zollers as well. 3 completions on 3 attempts for 58 yards and a touchdown. The kid is, I believe, he was listed as a 5-star at one point. I think he got bumped back down to a 4-star. So he will not be seeing him, right? We're going to be seeing mostly Bo Pribula pending some kind of injury, but Bo Pribula looked really good in the rush offense as well as in the passing offense as well. I mean, he went 23 of 28, 283, a couple touchdowns. He had 72 rushing yards on 10 attempts. I mean, the kid is really,
couple touchdowns too on the ground.
Yeah, a couple touchdowns on the ground as well. So, I mean, Bo Pribula, he's the real deal, right? I mean, we know that he is a very, very good quarterback. Just the situation that he was in at Penn State, kind of unfortunate. You know, he was the kind of guy who he was sitting behind another guy who's going to be playing on Sundays, and Drew Aller. So he kind of had to leave Penn State. Now, it's unfortunate that he went to Mizzou. I think he should have his head examined by making that decision. But he's a really good quarterback. case in point. And yes, again, it was against Central Arkansas, right? Not a very good team. FCS, 61-6. It's whatever. But the thing that I pulled out of this is, yes, the rushing attack is really good. They look beatable, right? They were okay through the air, but there were some times, there were some miscues, right? So this team isn't necessarily, the Mizzou teams of the past where they're a top 10 team and talking about getting into the CFP. They're unranked too. And I think you said it last episode as well. Whoever wins this game, I bet you that they will be ranked. I will bet you money that whoever wins this game is going to be ranked no matter what the outcome is. So that's going to be really, really interesting to watch. But again, there were some miscues. And I think that, I don't know. I just don't think that they have all the pieces together, and I think Kansas is going to go in there and potentially shock the world.
Well, I want to ask you more about Pribula. Want to point out Marquise Johnson for Mizzou. He led them 5 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown. We understand that this is a very different Kansas defense than there was last year, and maybe even without Bengali Kamara, KU has a better core group of linebackers. But one area, and this does directly relate to Pribula and what he did against Central Arkansas, that Kansas really struggled last year at times was defending running quarterbacks. And that's going to be an issue like we talked about with Pribula, 10 carries, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We saw it last year with Sam Levitt in particular. He had his way on the ground, a lot of breakaways. KU's linebackers were not quite there. Granted, we didn't have Cornell Wheeler healthy throughout the season for the most part, but KU's linebackers in this one need to find a way to maintain Pribula and keep him in the pocket, because I do think that Kansas has an advantage up front when Mizzou is on offense and KU's on defense. We talk at length about KU's defensive line, both on the outside and the interior, the number of guys that they can run through. I think Missouri's offensive line, though big, though talented, are susceptible, and there's a chance that KU can make something happen there and wreak some havoc on Pribula, but keeping him in the pocket is going to be vital. And, no Bengali Kamara. At least we think. He wasn't listed on the depth chart earlier this week. That's another wrench thrown into KU's plan, but you're going to have to contain Pribula a little bit if you want to have success on that side.
Yeah, as of right now, I don't think that Bengali Kamara is going to be playing. I know there's been some rumors about him being out potentially a few weeks, right? So fully anticipate that Bengali Kamara will not be playing, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the world, right? You have guys like John Kamara, who, unrelated, by the way, who is well noted as the best athlete on this Kansas squad. And from what we saw before that disqualification and the targeting call against him, against Wagner, he is a damn good football player. And he's flying around. He's good in coverage. He's good in the run fit. I like John Kamara in there. So obviously you don't want another targeting call to happen and you want him to play that entire game. But if that does happen, you still have depth at that linebacker position. I think this is going to be a big game for both John Kamara as well as Trey Lathan. Trey Lathan had a big-time game. It's good for him to get momentum in that Wagner game, right? He was the leading tackler for Kansas. You saw him flying around all over the field. The defense was playing with so much energy against Wagner when they didn't necessarily have to, right? They held them for however many yards it was, less than 200 yards total, right? So you love to see that out of guys like Trey Lathan and John Kamara, right? Logan Brantley was in there, got some play. Ezra Vedral, obviously there's a little bit of work to be done with Ezra Vedral, but again, he showed flashes of being somewhat okay. Yes, he did blow that one touchdown, but at the same time, the other plays that he was in there, I thought he did look semi-okay. So this linebacker core is really going to have to focus on containing the run as well as the defensive ends too, right? The Dean Millers of the world, the Leroy Harrises of the world. Those guys are going to have to really step up and contain that pocket, because not only do they have Ahmad Hardy, who ran for 100 yards against Central Arkansas, Bo Pribula as well. If you flush Bo Pribula out of the pocket, he's going to be able to run.
Yeah, KU is going to have to utilize the length, athleticism, and depth that they have, particularly at the linebacker position. But like you said, also off the edge, when you probably won't have Bengali Kamara, which is fair to assume with him not being on the depth chart, that's a big loss, because that is a guy who has that length, the ability to close gaps, and that sort of thing. Defensive end, if those guys ever are dropping into coverage, they need to find a way to keep an eye on Pribula, period. in college football, so much more than the NFL, you have so many more quarterbacks who can get outside the pocket and create big plays. And Kansas saw that all too often last year. Again, a different group of guys, but too often was the case where Kansas was beaten by the quarterback run, be it design or some situation where there was a broken play and they ran. So that's a situation where the linebackers, the defensive ends are going to have to be big. If that happens and they're able to keep Prabula in the pocket, I like Kansas' chances because I feel so strongly about KU up front.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about it all throughout the offseason about how the depth of the guys in the middle, right? The DJ Withers, the Tommy Dunn's, the Keenan Caldwells, those kind of guys do a great job of plugging up those holes. We saw it last week with DJ Withers getting a ton of pressure on that Wagner quarterback. We saw Keenan Caldwell week 1 get a forced fumble, get a ton of pressure on EJ Warner. So you feel good about the tackles in that situation. The edges with Dean Miller actually playing in the Wagner game makes me feel a lot more comfortable, right? Because Dean Miller, obviously, we know what he's able to do. He was a, all Big 12 selection from last year, and not going into this Missouri game with a game under your belt is huge for a guy like Dean Miller because he was out against Fresno State. So he's still getting those game reps. He's still understanding. And also his leadership is out there as well. We know Dean Miller has turned into a leader on that defensive group. So if he's going to be out there, that's going to be absolutely huge. Now I'm expecting a big game from Justice Finkley. Justice Finkley is a guy that we've been hearing about all offseason about how he's come in and really ingrained himself into the culture of Kansas. And he's so much so that he became a captain. The guys voted him a captain. He's only been here for 8 months. So that's so impressive to me that a guy is able to do that in that short amount of time and be that vocal leader and be that leader on the field. Now, we haven't seen a lot of production out of Justice Finkley yet, right? The hard physical stats have not been there for Justice Finkley. We've been talking about a lot of other guys like Leroy Harris, like Dean Miller, right? Like Alex Bray. We've been talking a lot about these guys. I want to see Justice Finkley have a big game for this Kansas squad against Mizzou.
KU's going to have to win the turnover battle. They were -2, even though they won by 39. They were -2 against Wagner. Hopefully they can wreak some havoc like we talked about on Prabula and pick up a victory in Como. We're going to be talking a lot about that game here on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com. Big shout out as well to Miles Schneer and everybody over at Crown Automotive. Really appreciate their partnership and helping make this happen. After this, we're going to hear from Lance Leipold, his press conference a little bit earlier this week. Be right back. You're watching KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City.
I'm DJ Withers, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports on Kansas Nation. Head coach Lance Leipold. Well, we got to hear a little snippet of his press conference yesterday when he was talking about being approached at church, and a couple told him to go out and take care of business. Yes. We'll say
kick their butts.
Well, let's hear everything that Coach Leipold had to say previewing the Tigers Saturday at 2:30.
Little background history today of where it's all the way back to the border and what the border stood for in the past history and free states and slave states, and kind of went through the whole history where these two states have been competitive and not always agreed, and then went through when the first game was played and all the things that have gone on from there and where the series is at. Touched on when it hasn't been played in a while, and so I think they got a good understanding of some of that. I think there's more there. Or even from coaches and staff, it was educational through this process. But the bottom line is we got to go play football. So possibly some outside warmer players still could be in play, but these games they can be intense. There's a lot of things about it make it special. To me, it's what makes college football special. But at the same time, it's still a matter about how you prepare, your focus, and everything you put into it, and then going out and executing on game day. It's not, as I say, we always want to be an enthusiastic team and not an emotional team. Your emotions sometimes can take you in directions that can be counterproductive sometimes. So I want to make sure that this team is well prepared and focused on playing their best football to date, because we're playing a very good football team. team that's won 21 games over the last 2 years, got off to a very good start last Thursday, and it'll take our best football to date of the season to come out with a win, and our team understands that.
I guess from the football standpoint, what have you noticed about Missouri on tape?
Extremely talented. You can see they've done a great job since Coach Drinkwitz has been there as far as recruiting, balancing high school and portal players. They've added nice additions, across the board. Height, size, speed, what you'd expect out of a competitive SEC team. The defensive ends are very, it's an excellent defensive line, but the defensive ends are extremely twitchy and quick off the edge. The size up front at the D tackle spot and still very athletic. So again, those things are always going to be challenging. Athletic linebackers. The young man Trotter played at West Virginia last year. We played against him. Offensively, again, they've added a quality quarterback through the portal that is a dual threat guy. He's an excellent runner. Was productive at Penn State in the role that they used him. An excellent running back with quickness and speed that transferred from Louisiana Monroe. Again, explosive receivers. They were able to create explosive plays last Thursday. All the things that, like I say, that you want a balanced football team to be, and they have that. And again, those are the challenges that we have to match.
After a couple games of rotating at those two offensive line spots, what have you seen from those positions and the guys taking part in them?
Well, first of all, offensively last year, I thought we were better interior-wise with our hands. We talked about that in here a lot last week. I thought, again, we were physical. I didn't think we had any holding penalties in the interior line. Last week, the holding calls were on the perimeter. Again, Amir and Vaca both taking steps. Amir continues to play well. Enrique played both sides in the game and has played well. Nolan did a good job. So again, as we continue to work and keep guys fresh and have guys to rotate, we're pleased where that's at. It's not like we're sitting in a meeting, trying to find out, other options right now. We're pleased with the rotation that's there. And again, it was good to see some of the other guys get some opportunities for their futures and for our future line development.
And just kind of a loose end from the last game. What was the situation with Braden punting instead of Finn in the last game?
Yeah. Finn was just held. He had a tweak of something, and again, he was limited today, so we'll see where that goes for the week.
Do you have an update on how Van is doing?
He did not practice today. That's my update. Okay.
And also Jack Tanner.
Jack Tanner did not practice today as well. So they're not on the depth chart, so you can probably figure where that's trending for both.
When we talked to Trey after the game, he referenced listening to his teammates talk about their stories on Friday night, so the night before a game.
Yeah.
First of all, is that something you've done since you've been here? What's the importance of
that was more, I think it was alluded to something Chris Simpson does within his linebacker room, which he does, we do a lot of probably self stories or sharing it more in the off season, but Chris does a little bit more things at the hotel with his guys that he has. And again, I think we've always tried to develop, the understanding and respect and knowing a little bit more about someone's story. But that one, I think Chris does some really good things within his room, and he uses that Friday time at the hotel for that. And again, I think, you've got, Trey from Florida, and then, you have Ezra Bedwell from Wahoo, Nebraska, and Cole Mondy from right here in Lawrence, and everywhere in between. DeForest Stewart from Georgia. So you get a lot of different guys from a lot of different areas, and I think sometimes when you have a chance for them to understand that they're, maybe understand some of the differences, but also understand that there's more similarities than not in those stories.
I know you do a lot of those types of talks in the offseason, especially. How important are conversations like that in when you have a whole new roster and then now you go into an environment where being in a team
It's
like it's
well, again, with that many new guys, Michael, that is a good point. And we've tried to make that up. That was always a concern. I'm sure it's a concern across the country in today's era, how you bring a team and a locker room together for respect and being one and playing for each other. That is something we have, I think I've said here before as well, is we feel strong about that it has come back to us about many of our portal players talk about differences. And one of the things they do talk about is the locker room, and that guys hang out and talk more. And some of that comes through some of these things in mutual respect and understanding.
With Perdula at Missouri, obviously he was with Andy
Yeah.
at Penn State. How do you go about the background checks on him and what he maybe did there? You talked to Andy. What's that?
I talked with Andy, spent some time with Andy this summer, and he just talked about that he's really outstanding young man and really handled a tough situation about entering the portal. Said I think he practiced the morning before he actually went in, which says a lot that it was a tough decision, and obviously the timelines of which we're under in this is difficult for teams like that. But raved about him as a person, as a quarterback, and you can see that in a real extended period of time that he's a very good quarterback, and he's difficult to defend because he's really a good dual threat guy.
Obviously, playing in a difficult environment like Columbia, is there anything you guys do differently or do anything to kind of stimulate that?
I can't say a ton of difference right now. We practice with crowd noise quite often and things like that. We do it during fall camp. We try to create environments and stimulus to challenge our guys on communication and being loud and trying to be that. Many times, obviously, that'll be increased or more frequent this week, especially being the first road game and it being a sellout, things like that. So you try to keep that in the forefront as you talk about those important things.
Lance, I was wanting to know if you've been out around town in the last few months and just noticed people ask you about this game or treat it a little different just with the KU fans.
Yeah, I've been asked about this game for a long time, John. It's been, I was walking in here yesterday and somebody stopped me. My wife and I were at church yesterday and somebody wanted to talk about it. I didn't know that was the right time to really. And somebody said, kick their butt, but didn't say butt, and it was in church. I didn't really think it was appropriate, but so, I mean, you can tell it's picked up, it seems, ever since, like I say, whether it be through the summertime, whatever, it's, you try to push it off until it's the game week. I guess now we got to address it, right, and ready to go. And you can tell people are excited, and it's good. And like I said earlier, I think that's what makes college football what it is, and things like this. And but again, want it to be done the right way. And we believe in doing things the right way, and competing hard on the field, and have it settled there, not in a parking lot or in the stands or all those different things that may happen at times. We want to make sure that we're at our best when our best is needed.
Lance, you were at Whitewater the last time this was going down, and when Mizzou left for the SEC, and obviously realignment was happening everywhere. Did it register with you what was happening around the country at that time with these types of rivalries? I'm sure you weren't super well versed on any of that.
Probably not. Not to the extent. I heard about this rivalry when I got the job, early that, then it was coming back on the schedule and things like that. When I worked at Nebraska, we played down there and stuff, so I've been able to see they have a good environment there for their home team. But yeah, probably not as much the first time like a Missouri or a Nebraska leaving the conference as much as probably seeing it this time when Texas and Oklahoma left, and probably being here to really understand some of those different things. But that was probably some of the first steps of this realignment, was probably back around then.
And the other night, Jalen said that Devin Neal left him with a pretty long list of what this rivalry was all about. Educated him, gave him the California boy, all that stuff. How much does that help?
Yeah.
I mean, from those former guys, and obviously you just mentioned maybe you'll have some guys come in this week, but guys that this group actually played with, to hear it from them.
And for the game not being played for a while, for a young man like Devin, who's still pretty young, to understand that his age. Devin did ask if he could come back and play this game. He said it to me walking off the field Friday night, that he goes, "I'll even come back as a walk-on." So appreciated that. But it's important. It's important to understand some of those things and have some of those feelings and understanding. But to know that, though, it's you hope it just intensifies one's preparation and the things they have to go through, because once the ball is kicked off, you have to go out and play, and there's things that have to be done and executed with precision and effort and strain and physicality, just like it does each and every other week. But I'm sure that any of those extra boosts along the way, our guys will take and take seriously.
On the linebacker front, and then we talked a little about John, but heading into this season, what were your goals for him? And think about when he showed up on campus 12 months ago versus now. Like, how much have you really seen it?
Well, John's progressed as maybe as much as any guy in this program, and he's just starting to scratch the surface of how good he could be. If you ever could you guys find all that stuff anyway, but through the past, if you ever look at a picture of him when he was in 9th grade to what he looks like now, to where he continues to develop, or I should say 9th grade to a senior year of high school, a guy that was more of a corner and a safety, and he keeps moving closer to the ball. He continues to progress, and things that maybe weren't completely natural to him, he's worked extremely hard on, so it has been. It was disappointing that he only had about 11 snaps in the game, because it was really an opportunity with Bengali out for him to really get more work, and that was probably one of the more disappointments of the game. It's unfortunate, but again, he needs to be a key special teams player for us. He needs to be ready to play his most football in his career on Saturday, and I know he'll prepare to do so.
And going to the offense side of the ball, with Deshawn and Daniel, the combination that they can have, obviously Deshawn can play on Saturday, but on Friday, what do you hope they can bring you in games like this that are on the road, when you talk a lot about wanting to take the air out of the crowd?
Well, like I said, I think both are physical runners, and games like this, there's going to be tough yards to get to keep the sticks moving, and I think both backs can be physical and productive in these type of situations, and that's what we're going to need from them. We're going to need them both healthy, and Deshawn did do some stuff today, so we do anticipate him being available. But yeah, those are the things I think they both have shown their abilities with vision, quickness, power, speed that we want from our backs, and they'll be a big part of Saturday.
Anything else for Coach Liepold? All right,
Thanks.
That's KU head coach Lance Liepold earlier this week talking to reporters. Interesting. I know that we remember when Coach was asked about this in the past, Dan, that he kind of had to be educated himself when he first got to Kansas about the hatred and the rivalry that is the border war. And now they're doing the educating of the players, showing them different videos and feeding them info on that front.
Yeah, 100%. And, a lot of the guys, we talked to Calvin Clemens, we talked to Deshawn Hanika, which we're going to be hearing from Deshawn Hanika later in the show, but talk to them about what the rivalry means to them. And it's been so long that, they kind of thought that, okay, K-State's the big rival. It's like, no. Let's let you guys in on what this thing is really about. So I love the fact that Lance is leaning in on it. Now, he said that he's not leaning too far into it because, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like if you're playing with a lot of hatred, it could get really ugly. But also, that's what the fans are for. The fans can do all that stuff on the field. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, I guess.
Well, KU Mizzou is back, which means there's officially a game to circle on the calendar for this year and moving forward in years that KU has the Tigers. Because as I've said before, otherwise there's just not. There's no other game that you point to if there's not KU and Mizzou, and other people might take offense to that.
Well, apparently ESPN thinks it's Michigan, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was lame. I don't like that either. Hey, we're going to be joined by Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, and the Lawrence Journal World. After this, you're watching on KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City.
I'm Justice Finkley. You're watching KansasNation.com. Rock Chalk.
Welcome back, KansasNation.com with Dan Courtwright. I am Sean Kellerman, and every Wednesday on the show, we're joined by Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, LJWorld.com. Henry, thanks for coming on. Got to ask you a rivalry-related question here very soon, as you, of course, are hailing from the great Golden State. But first, let's talk about the victory over Wagner. Did anything pop out at you regarding the 46-7 win for KU?
I mean, a few things. I guess it was nice to see Emmanuel Henderson do what was promised all offseason in terms of torching corners and hauling in touchdown passes. And I think KU, for the most part, looked about as good as you would hope. I mean, a couple of mistakes that you would have hoped they would have avoided against a substantially overmatched opponent. But final score ends up looking something like what most people probably expected. I do think that the linebacker situation came out as kind of a concerning element, with Bengali Kamara's injury getting added to a list that already included Joe Sipp and Jason Gilliam, now heading into a rivalry game with basically 3 scholarship linebackers you can play is not necessarily an ideal position for them to be in. So for me, that almost kind of overshadowed the game itself, even if it's just one position group. But in terms of that win, good for KU to build confidence, and for a team with so many new pieces, every rep matters at this point in the year.
Yeah, and that void at linebacker, or potential voids, definitely could play a part this upcoming Saturday. And now we're going to transition away from Wagner, as fun as that game was, and talk about KU Mizzou, the border war, as for the first time since 2011, these teams are doing battle. The teams obviously have a lot of hatred, not a lot of respect. They can't even agree on an all-time series on that front. But Henry, I got to ask, obviously you grew up out west. I need to know, did you know much about the KU Mizzou rivalry when you were following sports growing up, or are you more of the just assumed KU, K-State, that sort of thing?
That's a good question, Sean. I think the paramount rivalry for me growing up was the big game, because my mom went to Cal.
Right.
And that's a team I grew up watching a lot of. But in terms of KU Mizzou, I actually do think I had a fairly reasonable understanding of it. I remember watching that 2007 game where it was all on the line at Arrowhead. And I honestly think that watching the 2007, 2008 editions of the game kind of gave me maybe a false sense of confidence in what KU football was like over the broad spectrum of its history. But no, I think I had some understanding of it, and certainly learning about Bleeding Kansas and AP US history gives you a pretty good understanding of how that came to be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're bad people. They're just bad people. And I said it yesterday. It's good versus evil, essentially, the grand scheme of things. Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, and Lawrence Journal World joins us here in studio. And Henry, I want to go back to the Wagner game. I'll ask some more Mizzou questions, but
come on.
In terms of, I know. We want to ramp this up with Mizzou stuff, but I want to wrap up at least the Wagner part, because we saw. I mean, I can't remember the exact numbers, like 80 some odd guys, 80 some odd different players who got action. Were there any of the younger guys who kind of caught your eye there towards the tail end of the game that you thought, okay, maybe there's a flash here and there that shows that they're primed for the future?
I mean, I think it starts with the running backs. I thought Harry Stewart didn't look like he missed a beat for someone who spent most of the offseason sidelined with a knee injury. He showed why KU's so excited about him. And, it's hard to ignore Justin Thurman busting off a 58-yard run. That's your guy, Dan. I feel
it's
like
my guy.
You've been pretty
called
high
back, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, but no one will remember that.
No.
And Thurman's got it as a pinned tweet on Twitter now, a little clip of that run. I thought that burst he showed was really impressive. There were bits and pieces of Cole and Isaiah's performances that I thought were all right. And defensive players, maybe a little bit harder to gauge them, especially going against an offense of FCS backups, which I suppose the offensive players are doing too. But I think the running backs probably stood out to me most among the younger players who got the chance to contribute.
All right, now looking at Mizzou, obviously we'll get past all the nasty words and the hate and all of that. I mean, we'll kind of talk about that off air, but want to look at Mizzou just as a whole, right? Their running game is really good. Now they played against an FCS opponent as well in Central Arkansas, beat them 61-6. What do you see out of this Missouri squad, and where do you think that they kind of have the advantage over Kansas?
Well, the primary area that seems to me like a mismatch in Missouri's favor, and this is no offense to this position group of KU's, is Missouri's defensive line against KU's offensive line. I think that's an incredibly experienced group the Tigers have up front. You think about adding a transfer from Georgia and Damon Wilson II on the edge, who will really test KU's tackles. And, I think this KU offensive line can develop into being as good a unit as the Jayhawks have had the last 2 seasons. But right now, there's still a little bit of uncertainty for me as to how the left guard and right tackle positions can perform against an SEC front. On the other hand, I guess there's one other area that I think that Missouri could potentially have an advantage, which is with their rushing game against KU's defense, mostly because of that linebacker issue we mentioned earlier, and because they have multiple threats to present between Ahmad Hardy, who had over 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns at ULM last year and is already off to a great start this year, and we know Bo Pribula's a rushing threat. I feel like the question for Pribula is more if he can sustain his passing form against a higher level opponent. But on the other hand, I think there are areas where KU has a little bit of an advantage. I think I agree with Eli Drinkwitz when he says Missouri hasn't faced a quarterback quite like Jalen Daniels. I think Jalen's at the top of his game right now. And I think that will challenge Missouri's secondary, which is maybe not quite as much of a strength, even though they've got about 3 good cornerbacks. Still, compared to some of the other positions I mentioned, I think that could help out for KU. And also, having Leshawn Williams back is significant when you think it's going to be kind of a ground and pound type game, and you're going to have to do all you can to wear down that defense on the road.
You talk about Mizzou's offense, obviously led by Pribula. When you're watching a baseball game and a pitcher comes in, MLB game, and all of a sudden it's their first or second appearance and they just get rocked, right? 4, 5, 6. A lot of the announcers will come on and say, "Oh, there's your welcome to the show moment," right? Or a batter comes in, he strikes out, goes 0 for 4, whatever. There's your welcome to the show moment. Pribula had a great first outing against Central Arkansas, but there's reason to think that he could have a welcome to the show moment against a Power 4 team like Kansas in a game where he's got to be feeling a little bit of pressure. They're at home. They're projected to win against KU. Who specifically for KU defensively do you think could get in and kind of cause him to be uncomfortable and give KU an edge?
Yeah, I mean, just listening to the Missouri press conferences this week, they're clearly concerned about Dean Miller and the speed he provides off the edge and the counter moves he's starting to develop. So I think he's someone who could create pressure. I kind of agree with you, Sean, because on the one hand, Bo Pribula has been in big games for Penn State. On the other hand, those games never rested solely on his ability to lead a team as its quarterback. There was always the idea that he was coming in for a couple plays at a time as a gadget guy, and Drew Aller would come in right afterward and clean up whatever happened. This Missouri team is basically on his shoulders at this point, even more so now that their other quarterback, Sam Horn, who was competing with him, is now out for an extended stretch due to, I believe it's a knee injury. So I do kind of think this will be a significantly heightened test for Pribula, and I think between Dean, Justice Finkley, and the really experienced defensive tackle groups that we've talked about at such great length, those guys will be bearing down on him and trying to make his life as difficult as possible and staying in their rush lanes to prevent him from escaping to the outside.
Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, and the Lawrence Journal World, all the way out from California, joining us here in studio. And Henry, this is something that we kind of talked about in the open, where I think both Sean and I agree that the winner of this game is probably going to be ranked. I mean, do you share that same sentiment? And is a win over this Missouri squad enough for Kansas to finally show up in the AP and the Coaches Bowl?
I lean that way. I will tell you guys, it is very difficult to come up with who should be like the number 24 and 25 teams in these polls.
But it looks cool when you have a number by your name.
Exactly.
So
it really does.
It means something to us.
So let me give you an example. Over the course of that TCU game, as it became apparent that TCU was going to beat North Carolina by 1,000,000 points, I was like, am I going to change the ballot that I already have loaded in here? And if so, who am I going to kick out? And so I after the final whistle blew, I reluctantly kicked out Tennessee and put in TCU. And sure enough, today, when they put out that chart with all the little people and what they voted, I start getting Tennessee fans tagging me.
Yes.
Henry Greenstein, why are you so stupid?
Right,
so it is a challenging calculus to determine who those final 3 teams should be. And I do think KU would probably also have to have someone like TCU or Tennessee look less impressive to get in. But yeah, in the situation where they beat Missouri, obviously that's a huge statement win that will be remembered for years to come. And I do think, though I can't get inside the minds of the 60-something other voters, especially some of those guys, I do think that KU would probably get a ranking in the AP poll.
And first of all, half of your mentions just have to be people being like, "Hey man, why'd you kick us out of the AP? Like, what are you doing? You're an idiot," like that kind of stuff. I would imagine, right?
Well, so far this year, and this could honestly be a negative against me because I haven't blazed my own trail, but so far this year, I've gotten pretty close to what the consensus poll ends up being. Last year, I was a lot lower on BYU than most others, and I certainly had a lot of people with Cosmo avatars calling me every permissible name.
Right. Yeah.
But
all of them are they're fine with the FCC, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But so far this year, I would say it's been pretty mild. I think it's only 2 or 3 Tennessee fans so far today.
Okay.
Hey, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Hey, getting back to Pribula, you remember last year KU football about as strange and heartbreaking as a year that you can have, given the fact that Kansas had so many seniors, but also had so many individual heartbreaking losses. And a lot of the times those came late, and a lot of the times there were broken plays where the opposing quarterback would take advantage of KU defensively. You talked about the linebacking room in particular. KU probably is going to be a little low on that front, but talk about the challenge of containing Perbulo and what Kansas needs to do to keep him in the pocket.
Yeah, I remember after covering some of my first few KU football games in 23, like they really struggled. I think they had 3 straight games where the opposing quarterback was the leading rusher at the start of that year: Missouri State, Illinois, Nevada. And from then on, heading into next season, it was always kind of like looking down the schedule and then looking up the career rushing yard stats of everyone that KU would get matched up against. I remember Brian Borwin saying at one point last year, like, why can't we just play one of those old quarterbacks with a knee brace who doesn't leave the pocket? And Borwin was always a good quote. But yeah, I think there will be plenty of quarterbacks this year who continue to test KU, and DK McDonald has put such an emphasis on speed off the ball and pursuit. And I do think those renewed emphases could help KU a lot in dealing with players like Pribula, but obviously this is their first chance to provide proof of concept that they're different than those squads of years past.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, yeah, I was saying, I wanted to ask, I wanted to kind of flip the field just a little bit, because I wanted to go back to something you were talking about with the offensive line. Do you think we're going to see a more set offensive line with, 80% of the snaps being Amir Herring and 20% being Tavake, or even 100 to 0? Or are they still trying to work out those kinks?
I think no. I think they're going to stick like this, and I'm not sure that that's good, but I'm not sure it's bad either. But based on Lance Leipold's response when I asked about that the other day, he basically said, like, we don't have a problem with the way it's gone so far. We're not looking for other solutions. And that kind of leads me to believe that until they have a truly jarring experience that prompts them to reconsider, they are going to continue with this rotation. I don't get me wrong, there have been encouraging signs from some of those guys. I think Tavake Tuiko-Avatu stepped it up a little bit in the last game, for instance. It's just hard to really rely on them against a defensive line as talented as Mizzou's.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And also on offense, Jalen Daniels going to have a big game. What else needs to happen for KU to get a victory in Como? Again, they're viewed as underdogs. Rivalry game, going to be a lot of hatred in the air. For KU to come home with a 3-0 record, what needs to happen?
I think you need to score early. It's obviously like a textbook road game thing, but I feel like over the course of the Lance Leipold era, there have been too many games where KU starts out and gets down 14-0 instantly. I feel like this was more the case early on, like in 2022 and a little bit of 2023. You can't have that at Faroe Field. Like, you got to do something to, if not take the crowd out of it, like take the edge off the crowd a little bit with some early points. And so I think scripting a good first offensive drive will be really important for Jim Zebrowski. I think third down defense, I heard a quote from, it might even have been Drinkwitz talking about how great KU's defense has been on third down. It might have been Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator. And I was just kind of thinking back to that Fresno State game where they were giving up all those like contested falling away throws on 3rd and 12 and stuff. And that didn't necessarily strike me as a team that is operating at the peak of its powers in third down defense. I think that will be really key, just not to give teams extra opportunities, avoid penalties. That can be a broad key as well. But just some things that initially came to mind. And also another reason why third down defense is so important is because Missouri lost its go-to kicker, who was 7 for 10 and 50-plus yard field goals in his career. They're now going to be starting a freshman from Colfax, California, as it happens.
Look at that. Another California kid.
Yeah, and so, you can't necessarily rely on that guy as much as you did the other one. So third downs will be key.
Yeah, 100%. Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, and the Lawrence Journal-World. Henry, I know you never make a prediction unless you're 70% sure that it happens. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you, just out on a limb here, what's your score prediction, your final score for this KU Mizzou game?
I feel like I'm about to get myself in a lot of trouble. I have been saying Missouri by a field goal when I've been asked
Henry.
about this. I do think it's going to be really close, and I would definitely, if I were going to make a pick, I would pick KU with the spread currently, which is 6.5. I would definitely pick KU to cover that, but I've had a difficult time pushing myself all the way toward picking them to outright win the game at this juncture so early in the season. They still have more to prove. They weren't good on the road last year. Like I feel like I need to see a more substantive demonstration of what they can do against a top level team before I start picking them in games against their hated rivals.
Well, I blacked out for a little bit of that, but the only part that I heard was KU and outright win the game. So I think we're good. I do need to know though, Henry.
We'll trim that up for the video.
Real quick, California State University Stanislaus, who was their biggest rival, and was it as historical and as intense of a rivalry as the border war?
I don't know that Stanislaus State has a rival, but they might. I guess the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned Stanislaus State was KU legend Marcus Bell and his participation in.
That's right. I remember when you got to say that on JHX Hoops, or are you calling them Jayhawks Hoops? I can't remember. You stuck with JHX.
I don't know at this point, but yes, that's my Stanislaus State connection for you guys.
Oh man, well, if you want to know anything about the basketball tournament, Henry Greenstein is your guy. He's got all things California covered as well. Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, LJWorld.com. Thanks again for joining us, and hey, bring home a winner from Columbia. Hopefully next week we're talking about a 3-0 team.
Thanks for having me, guys. I look forward to the game.
Absolutely. Our KU Mailbag segment is coming up next. Hit us up on Twitter at the Kansas Nation if you haven't yet. Ask us KU Mizzou or anything you want to ask. We'll touch on it next segment. KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City.
I'm DJ Withers, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
5 o'clock hour here, KansasNation.com. Thanks for watching and for listening on ESPN Kansas City. Shout out as well to Miles Schneider and everybody over at Crown Automotive helping make this possible. KansasNation.com. If you're not there right now, and in fact, if you're listening on ESPN Kansas City or tracking us some other way, make sure that you check us out. Also, all of our socials, Dan, is a great spot to keep up with all things KU.
That's right. Yeah. Check us out at The Kansas Nation on Twitter, at The Kansas Nation on Instagram. Look up Kansas Nation on Facebook. Also, all of our shows are going to be posted on YouTube as well, so be sure to check out all of our content. Plus, Kansas Nation got some great articles by our very own Sean Kellerman.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
He moonlights as a writer. So, yeah, check out all of his articles. Got some great stuff on KU soccer, KU volleyball, KU football, all the works. So, if you want to read some really good stuff without pulling out a thesaurus, check out Sean Kellerman stuff.
Shout out to KU Volleyball as well. They had an afternoon matinee today against Bowling Green and won 3-1. So now 2-3. Again, the lone losses are the top 15 teams, but they're going to get some wins there. And obviously, as you mentioned at the top of the show, the AVCA doesn't care as much in terms of rankings. KU dropping only from 14 to 15 as they went to 5 sets in all of those losses. But a nice feel-good victory today for Matt Ulmer and company. It's our KU Mailbag segment, which is both by the people
and for the people.
How about that? At the Kansas Nation on Twitter is the best place to find us with questions, comments, anything. Doesn't have to be sports related, but we've got a nice list today, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and start here with Calvin. Calvin wants to know, in terms of the KU Mizzou game, where will the game be won and lost? This is a good question from Calvin, and I think that there's one answer that is for both of these, right? I think that it's the rushing defense for Kansas. If the rush defense is able to contain Bo Prabula as well as Ahmad Hardy, I think that they win. I think that if they're not able to corral them together and both of those guys get a lot of rushing yards, I think that that is kind of where the game could potentially be lost. That's the biggest component in all of this, and with the fact that you're losing 3 linebackers that you're not going to be traveling to Columbia that aren't going to be playing in this game, including Bengali Kamara, who is your number 1 guy who has the most experience out of anybody on the defense in terms of power 4 level opponents. And you're losing Joe Sipp, who we still haven't seen. You're losing Jason Gilliam. Those 3 guys are going to be key, and they're not going to be playing out there against Mizzou. So that could be a big, big issue. So that's going to be where it's won or lost, is just in terms of the rush defense for Kansas.
Yeah, you got to make Bo Prabula uncomfortable. That's one thing that we've talked about. Prabula, a guy who ran for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 carries against Central Arkansas. We know that he is a dual threat type guy, but like I was saying last segment with Greenstein, hey, this could be his welcome to the show moment. KU has the horses defensively. They can get after him. They could flush him. They could keep him in the pocket, rather, make sure that he's not able to roll outside of the pocket, which is an issue that we saw so often last year with 2024 Kansas football, a different group of guys. But still, if KU can maintain him, make him uncomfortable, sack him 2, 3, 4 times, and make him question himself, that is a huge, huge key for Kansas in this one, because KU, not only will they have the best player in this game, but they also have the most experienced player in Jalen Daniels. They've got the quarterback edge, and they need to show that. You got to have JD performing at the top of his game. There's no reason to believe like he won't. But, yeah, I think that's absolutely key. And I also want to see, Dan, on that front, the turnover battle. I don't want to read into it too much. KU was +3 in the turnover battle against Fresno State, but didn't force a turnover from Wagner. A little bit strange. Granted, they punted a million times, but still, the balance is always interesting for a defense between taking those risks at a big play, something that we saw Kobe Bryant do so often, and making sure you play sound football. Those takeaways, especially on the road and as hostile environment as you're going to be playing in, can be absolutely critical.
Yeah, 100%. And, losing the turnover battle obviously is going to be a big thing for this Kansas squad. Also, kind of on that same note, Kansas doesn't include turnovers, but in terms of giving the ball away, Finn Lappin didn't play against Wagner, right? We saw Graydon Addison, who there's about a 10-yard difference between those two punters. So if we don't see Finn Lappin in this Mizzou game and KU does have to punt, now, granted, in a perfect world, we never see the punter out there, right? That's the punter should be the best player you never want to see. If Finn Lappin does not play and it is going to be Graydon Addison, then that could be a serious thing that, could kind of come back to bite Kansas, because then you're giving Mizzou a much better field position after 3 and outs.
Are you saying special teams is important?
Special teams is important.
Hey, that's music to my ears. I've been saying that for a long time. KU's got to win the special teams battle, not just on Saturday, but moving forward. And, hopefully Finn Lappin is out there on Saturday. If not, need to see a good performance out of Addison if and when KU punts. Do you subscribe to the idea that anytime you kick in football, it's a good thing? I understand you don't.
No.
You don't like that. Okay,
no,
that sounds good. I'm just saying if you're kicking
kicks,
yes,
no,
okay, sounds good. I'm just saying you don't want to turn the ball over. You punt the football, you win the field position game. I've heard that before. My initial thought was the exact same thing that you just said.
Anytime?
I mean, think about it. Anytime you're kicking or punting, you don't want to turn it over, but at least you're not, or you don't want to turn it over to the other team, but at least you're not turning the ball over and ceding field position. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
Some food for thought a little bit later tonight when you're watching Gilmore Girls with Piper.
I think if it's like 4th and 1 and you're down by 3 points and you're inside the red zone, I mean, do you go for it on 4th and 1 there and try to win the game?
No.
I think that you do.
No, you don't.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just more of a risk taker. You're more risk averse. You don't like heights. You don't like what do you don't like pasta, roast, dogs. You don't like anything. All right, next question. Colin, he wants to know, who are your way too early picks for the Heisman? Love this question. I have actually have it pulled up right now on DraftKings. So number 1, weirdly enough, it's Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, man. He got to win in Death Valley.
Which Death Valley?
The first of many, he's thinking.
The Tigers won in Death Valley.
Yes.
Garrett Nussmeier, he's number 1 right now, plus 800. Lenore Sellers, I am a big fan of his. But you know who my way too early pick for Heisman is? Jalen Daniels at plus 6,000. Come on now. Come on. That value, well, you have to look at that and think, that's just the easiest money I'll ever win in my life.
Hey, you know what? I love Jalen Daniels. He's absolutely a Heisman contender. It just goes back to what I said last week on the show, which is no matter what, all you want is for all your teams to win the championship every single year and all the individuals to get all the awards, and then you'll be happy.
That's what you strive for, is it not?
It is. It is.
Now, granted,
it doesn't feel as good, and I honestly feel this, and I don't want to have to live by this, because obviously we all want to win every year, but it feels better when the pain has led up to it.
Are you a masochist?
I'm not going to let. I'm just saying you don't want it, but when KU won the title in 2022, there was pain from 2020. There was pain from the Elite Eight losses. Yes. Or even go back to the 2018 Final Four when KU got there with Malik Newman and his 32 points. You lost the 2 previous years in the Elite Eight, the most painful round of the NCAA tournament that you can lose. You got there, and just the elation of getting to the Final Four in 2018. I don't know. I don't like it. It's the worst day of the year whenever KU loses. in the NCAA tournament talking about basketball,
right.
but you just gotta appreciate the ups and downs a little bit.
So Sean thinks winning is boring. That's what I'm getting out of this. He doesn't want Kansas to win.
I'm
ever.
just saying
he likes the
I'm
pain.
just saying all you are ever asking for
You're
in
like
life
Jerry
is for
Jones.
all of your teams to win.
Of course,
every single game, every single. I'm just saying.
If I was the opposite, then I'd be a Cleveland Browns fan, but I'm not. I'm
I hope 30 years from now the Browns are still the joke of a franchise that they are, because it's been fantastic.
I think
my X amount of years.
Yes,
the Browns and the Jets. It's just there's nothing better in sports. The Lions, however, they kind of got past that.
Yes.
So the Browns and Jets, though, just continue to do what you're doing.
Yes.
KU Najee, Jalen Daniels, 2025 over under. So I'm assuming this is similar to what he is projected to do. Is that what these numbers are?
So I don't think so.
Okay.
So KU Najee asks, he says, Jalen Daniels, 2025 over under 2,664 passing yards and 24 touchdowns.
Okay.
He also added on, he said, bonus points if you know what former cornerback those stats belong to.
I
Let me
see.
tell you something, KU Najee. Nobody has those stats because Carter Stanley actually has 2,661 yards, not 2,664 yards. He also has 24 touchdowns. Over under, I mean, absolutely. By the way, first thought, the thing that popped in my head was Peyton Bender.
Peyton Bender, wow.
I thought that,
honestly, I was thinking Bill Whittemore.
Bill Whittemore would have been a good pick too.
Yeah.
Peyton Bender was sneakily good.
He was not as good as Carter Stanley.
No, he wasn't as good as Carter Stanley, but Peyton Bender wasn't a terrible quarterback. I think he had like 13 touchdowns that year, though, so still wasn't, not exactly great. Jalen Daniels over 2,664.
Oh, we're both taking over, right?
Way over. I mean, we're probably pushing into
24 touchdowns. I mean, he's already at 7.
Yeah, we're pushing into the threes, I think, and I think in terms of passing touchdowns, does he go for 30? He could. It all kind of depends on which I think that Jalen in this offense, it much better suits him, right? As opposed to a Jeff Grimes style offense. I think that this offense is essentially built around Jalen Daniels for him to be successful. So, yeah, I think he's going to go way over that. But I bet you didn't think I was going to get Carter Stanley on that, did you, KU Najee?
I was close, by the way, with Bill Whittemore. 2,664. He ends up throwing for 2,385 in his 2003 season. So that's pretty solid. That's when we had
2,664.
That's when we had the no, he didn't.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, sorry. 2,661. You said is the correct number for Stanley.
That was Carter. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they accidentally had a completion for -3 yards that was actually a fumble.
I believe it's net.
So yeah.
Or is it gross or net or whatever?
18 touchdowns for Whittemore in that 03 season. Yeah, the Navy KU uniforms. Those are we should hit a throwback on those.
I would love
at
that.
some
The
point.
block letters on the side of the helmet.
Yeah,
man,
absolutely.
Man, oh man.
Hey, here's a similar question from Cole that I know you'll appreciate, Dan, because of our one-on-one promise that we're going to be facing each other at some point in hoops. Cole wants to know if there was a seeded bracket of everyone in the world in a game of one-on-one basketball, how many rounds are you making it? 33 rounds, which is now going to be a number that's ingrained in my brain forever, is that somebody did the math of however many billions people there are in the world, put it in a tournament bracket format, which I love brackets.
Oh, yeah.
But this time, instead of a fight to the death, which I thought was a little excessive last week, this is one-on-one basketball. Your thoughts?
So do you think you go farther in a fight to the death or a fight or one-on-one basketball? Because I think I think I'm a better basketball player than a fighter.
I'm a pacifist, man.
I'm
a pacifist.
There was one time I did my top 10 mascots that I could beat in a fight, and I started losing at Oregon Ducks. So I'm not a good fighter, but I'm a relatively, in terms of everybody in the world, I'm a better basketball player, I think, than the average person, including babies and elderly people. So right there, you probably, if it's seeded, you're probably getting a baby or somebody over the age of 85.
Wow, you're not going to let a baby win? Well, that is a terrible person move.
And I know, I understand that.
You need to let the baby win. You don't want to hear the baby giggle?
No. I'm going to, oh my gosh, I'm going to swat that baby's ball into next week. Okay. I'm a very competitive person when it comes to basketball. So Sean, I know that if you're facing off against a baby, it might be a little tougher for you.
That would be tough.
Elderly person, again, I have no qualms over
you lift the baby up and let the baby dunk it.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
what
elderly person,
you're no, I'm not going to do that. Absolutely not. I'm trying to win, okay? I'm trying to win this thing. I think I go I can't remember what I said. I think I might go like 6, 7 rounds in a fight to the death. I think in basketball, I'm looking more like 12, 13. Like, I think I go maybe even farther, maybe like 15. Again, I'm above, I think I'm above 50% of the average person in terms of basketball. So I think I go, maybe round 15 plus. I don't think I get, maybe 18 is where I start to lose.
Well,
like 15, 16, around there.
I mean, you're young, you're of average looks. You've got an opportunity to do something here. And I think I agree, though. I think 16, 17, 18 rounds would be doable. Obviously, the one time you and I played Pig, I wiped the floor with you. This is a different situation. But no, I think one-on-one, the competitive nature will come in. I think there's a certain group or two, like you said, that, as long as you get a fortuitous draw, you'll be able to surpass.
That's what I'm saying. If it's seeded, because I'm a young, spry person, you are a little bit on the older side. So I don't know where you're exactly are going to be seated, because I don't know. When were you?
Hey, you act older than I.
BH Born, where you guys were roommates back in the day, right?
Yes.
So you guys probably played a little bit. So
little one-on-one. See, that's the thing, is I'm battle tested.
Practice, right? Exactly.
I'm battle tested. You're nothing but talk.
Right. That's. That's very true. I have a basketball hoop in my house, and Sean refuses to come over and play me. We have a basketball hoop in the studio.
I know. Gabe, do we have a video of our Pig game from last time? Because we got to get that.
I'm not good at Pig. I'm good at one-on-one. I'll back you down. I'll use my power. I'm like the round mound to rebound. I'll get under there. So anyway.
Hey, next question comes from Chris. What sort of trick plays or razzle-dazzle will the Hawks pull out against Missouri? I like this a lot. I was a little bit surprised that we saw one quasi trick play, I guess, on a point after when Carson Bruin took the direct snap quarterback. What would you call that? It wasn't power. It wasn't a draw. Quarterback speed.
Yeah, well, the offensive line was lined up to the ball was essentially snapped from the tackle. I don't really know what you would call that. Like a belly. I don't even know. I have no idea.
Anyway, but we haven't seen much. Not surprising to this point. KU hasn't needed anything too deep in the playbook, but what do you like? A little hook and ladder action, or
hook and ladder feels like something you have in your back pocket for a bowl game. And the reason that sticks with me is because obviously the Fiesta Bowl, Boise State, Oklahoma, back in the day. I don't know what kind of trickery we're going to see. Maybe we'll see some flea flicker action. I think a lot of the trickery is going to come from the pre-snap motion, what Andy Kotelnicki used to love to do, and what we've seen Jim Zabrowski ease into the offensive play calls as we've gone through the first 2 weeks. I think we're going to see a lot of pre-snap motion. I think we're going to see maybe some reverses. I like that a lot. I mean, because you have to imagine that with all the pre-snap motion that we've already seen against teams like Fresno State and like Wagner, there's going to be much more to try to get Mizzou off the scent of what's going on. Also to try to disguise some coverages that Mizzou might be on, right? Obviously, that's what you do the pre-snap motions for, is to try to determine, hey, are they in man? Are they in Tampa 2? Are they in quarters? What are they in? So I think we're going to see quite a bit of just the pre-snap motion, I think, is going to be the main trickery. I don't think we're going to see any hook and ladders or, the ball is flat, let me go hand it to the referee, and then they run down the sideline, like that old thing. So I don't think we're going to see any of that stuff, but I'm excited to see at least a little bit more of the playbook kind of being opened up in this Mizzou game.
One thing that we haven't seen that I think we definitely could, at least from a pre-snap motion standpoint or anything, is, with Coach Z at the helm since he's been here, KU has not been afraid to send Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels out wide and do the Jayhawk formation, if you will. Devin Neal often was the one who would take the snap, and then you had Deuce right next to him, or Sevion Morrison or somebody. Not sure what that would look like.
Are you intentionally not calling it a Wildcat?
It's a Jayhawk formation.
Okay,
yeah, of course.
No.
And then you've got Highshaw and Williams. We have not seen that a ton to this point. The other thing that I think you might see, this isn't as razzle-dazzle, not as fun, but don't be surprised if you see KU's offense go out on like a 4th and 6, 4th and 7, and you see JD with the pooch punt, because we talked about how good he is on that front. So we want him to go for it every time, of course. But
BYU game.
Yeah, I know.
JD pooch
exactly, and I know that you have said it best, Dan, that anytime you punt or kick the ball, it's a good thing.
Never said that.
All right, what's next from Keegan here on the mailbag?
Keegan wants to know, the last time KU played Mizzou was a really bad Turner Gill squad. Pick one player from that team and season you would like to add to the squad. He said he's going to take Steven Johnson. So what is that? 2011.
Former Broncos legend. Yeah, I did some research on this as well. There were some good individual pieces. James Sims was on that team. Ben Heaney was on that team.
Ben Heaney was on the. Okay, yeah,
he was.
That makes sense, right?
Do you have somebody that comes to mind? Because I've got somebody.
Well, so the first one that popped in my mind was James Sims.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I guess I didn't realize that must have been Ben Heaney's his freshman year, maybe.
I'd have to double check.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Man, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to go with James Sims. I mean, going back to 2011, that's just so long ago, and plus they didn't have the names on the back of the jerseys. So.
James Sims had that incredible performance against Chicago at Memorial Stadium. Should I say Chicago? Against Colorado at Memorial Stadium, 4 touchdowns, and he is one of the best running backs that this program has ever seen. I'm going to go with a different running back. I'm going to say Tony Pearson. Remember Tony Pearson? A little bit of a jolt. One thing that we don't have as much of with Highshaw and Williams is while they're both quick between the tackles and have good burst, they're not exactly the joysticks, right? Or at least we haven't seen that to this point. I think Tony Pearson, even though he dealt with injury throughout his KU career, he has that athleticism, that joystick kind of hookah magic, if you will.
Question: was Tobin O'Purum on that squad?
He was.
Okay, I like Tobin O'Purum. Damon
Patterson. You like him as a running back or a linebacker?
Well, so that's the thing. He can play both sides of the ball. We got ourselves our own little.
Patterson
Travis
was
Hunter.
not on that squad.
Patterson was not on that squad, but Tobin O'Purum was. I'm going with Tobin O'Purum.
Cody says, "Who are KU's top 3 players on defense right now?" You know, interesting because the law firm of Withers and Dunn haven't been as impactful as we expected. And that actually was a Henry Greenstein law firm. We're more of a Kamara and Kamara type name, or Brune and Grune. But Greenstein brought up Withers and Dunn, and you know what? That sounds good too. Haven't seen as much out of them. Going to need to see that on Saturday in Columbia. I think those guys are definitely in the conversation. And I'm really curious at defensive end. Dean Miller, a guy who had 6 sacks and got all Big 12 accolades, is he going to put forth that type of season? And as Dan alluded to a little bit earlier in the show, Justice Finkley, a captain on this team, he has high expectations. Will he emerge to being one of KU's top guys? Unfortunately, one guy I would probably have on that list is Bangali Kamara, who is likely not going to play, not listed on the depth chart heading to Mizzou. But certainly the young secondary guys, Dan, got to be in conversation as well. Jalen Todd near the top of that list.
Yeah, I think Jalen Todd has had a fantastic showing so far. I mean, he's been pretty locked down, hasn't given up a whole lot of big yardage. But again, the competition that you're playing isn't exactly Mizzou. I think from what we've seen at this point, now granted, Lyric Rawls got off to a really bad start against Fresno State, and then all of a sudden he had the interception, and then he was all over the field. My number 1 player as of right now, who's an active player on this Kansas squad, I think I might go with Trey Lathan. I've really liked what I've seen out of Trey Lathan so far in that linebacking core. Also, you know, obviously you have the other guys like Dean Miller, who I think is definitely the number 2, if not the number 1 guy. Those guys are probably interchangeable. And then, like you said, haven't seen a whole lot in terms of, I mean, they've been getting pressure from Withers and Dunn, right? But we still haven't seen the big disruptions, right, that we were sort of anticipating. So I think I'm going to go with Trey Lathan. I'm going to go with Dean Miller, and I think Lyric Rawls has really impressed me, but I'm going to go with Jalen Todd.
Next one up on our KU Mailbag segment. What is your least favorite job you've ever had? This is from Luke. I'm going to go with a job that was only a job for about a week or 2, and that was lifeguarding. I essentially did the first 4 or 5 training sessions, and I was like, I absolutely hate this. Give me the concession stand. I was at the concession stand for multiple years, was old enough to become a lifeguard, went to the training session, and I thought, this is terrible. This is not nearly as fun as snacking on hot dogs and nacho cheese. I want to get back to where I belong. All of my older siblings were lifeguards, so I was like, oh, I'm meant for this. Man, I went to the training sessions, absolutely hated it.
Can you swim?
Did not like that. I am actually a really good swimmer.
I
am a very good swimmer.
Why did you not do well in the
Did not interest me. Did not interest me. I don't know.
That's insane.
And I'm also CPR trained.
By the way, we have a talk show where we talk about the team that we love for 2 hours a day.
Where?
And we have a pool table here. We have a poker table. We have a golden tee and a PlayStation. Lifeguarding is still my favorite job I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
That was so much fun being a lifeguard. I got paid to get a tan. Are you kidding me? By the way, the Carbondale pool probably a little less busy than whatever Johnson County Community Club that you were, or Country Club that you were a part of, Sean. But yeah, no, the Carbondale pool wasn't exactly the busiest. So I did spend a lot of my time being a lifeguard in the snack bar, chumping on those nachos and candy bars and all that sort of things. Plus, all my friends worked there too, so it was just a blast. But
shout out to all of our friends, by the way, who are watching or listening in Johnson County. Really appreciate all of you guys on that front. And yeah, we have pretty sweet digs here at Kansas Nation on Mass Street. Come check us out.
I will say the least favorite job that I ever had was mowing.
Really?
It wasn't great. Well, it would have been fine if I would have worked regular hours, but I worked like 12, 13 hours a day, so that was not the best. I did get my weekends, so that was kind of nice. But I mowed for a whole summer, and again, I got tan, but man, it was a long summer. Also, weed eating. I would have been fine just mowing. Weed eating, that was the worst thing in the world.
Got a couple more we want to do. Jason wants to know our score predictions. He says 23-20 with a last-second KU field goal. You know what? If Money Marjan comes up with that, I am completely down. Score prediction for this, man, on Wednesday. Let's see. This could be different than what I'm predicting on Friday, but I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one, and I think KU is going to have an ability to go up and down the field. Give me KU 35, Mizzou 30. Jayhawks win outright.
35-30, so you're taking KU to win the game. Okay.
Yeah, I know, shocking, right?
I am going to go. I think that it's going to be a ugly game. I think it's going to hit the under. I like the 23-20 pick. I think I'm going to go even lower than that. I think Kansas wins 20-15. I think K-State gets maybe a 2-point conversion. I think it's a 5-point game, but I think KU still wins by 5, but it's going to be 20-15.
All right, we've got a Royal Rumble style event question as it relates to Big 12 coaches. I'm saving it for next week. I'm saving it for next week. It's a good one, and I don't want to cut Ben short, but we are going to get to Adam's question. It's similar to the question we were asked earlier about 2011 Kansas football. This one, though, open-ended. What is one former KU football player you'd want to bring back to play in this border war game? Who are you going with?
It's not a player.
Okay.
But I think I just want the presence of Don Fambrough on that sideline. I think that Don Fambrough being on the sideline, chirping at the guys, telling them how much this game really, really means to them, I think that would really make a difference in this game. Now, if I'm going player, then, you probably go, well, you don't want to go Todd Racing because you got Jalen Daniels. I think you probably go Aqib Talib because he can play both sides of the ball. Maybe even Charles Gordon. I don't know. Charles Gordon would be an okay 1-2, but I think Aqib Talib, just because of the fact that I think he would be a lockdown guy and that secondary, as well as I think that he could get into the end zone a couple times, too, on the offense side of the ball.
Wow, not a Gale Sayers guy, not a John Riggins guy, not a Devin Neal guy. Oh, my gosh. Just the disrespect, the absolute disrespect of Dan Court. No, I'm with you there. Coach Pham, that would be a great presence to have. No, so many good options. Let's go with Joe Deneen, first year on the KU staff, and he has some stability, All-American type guy at the linebacker position, a position group that we know KU is probably going to be a little bit thin this Saturday. Hey, at the Kansas Nation on Twitter is where you can send your questions. No questions today about pizza or buffalo wings. I was a little upset about that because that's really speaking our language. It is Mizzou week. Talking a little bit more Kansas football, but appreciate everybody watching. After this, we're going to hear from a couple Jayhawks, Deshawn, Hanika, and Taylor Davis. Thanks for watching on KansasNation.com and listening on ESPN Kansas City.
I'm Justice Finkley. You're watching KansasNation.com. Rock Chalk.
Sean Kellerman and Daniel Courtwright back live at the new Kansas Nation studio on Mass Street. Thanks for watching on KansasNation.com. We'll be here again, of course, for tomorrow's show, talking a lot of KU Mizzou and Chiefs Chargers. And then Friday's show, special little remote show out at Hy-Vee, Clinton and Castle. Dan, what can you tell us about Keegan and everybody over at Hy-Vee?
Yeah, they're partnering up with Jocksnitch to sell, merchandised KU gear, really cool shirts out there out at Hy-Vee. They're also doing a $7 grab-and-go pizza deal. They do it every single Friday. Also, chicken enchiladas for only $8.99, I believe. So be sure to get out there to Hy-Vee. Come say hi. We're going to have a bunch of stuff to give away as well. So, yeah, like I said, just come swing by. It'll be from 4 to 6, regular time. Swing by, say hi, and get your groceries.
Yeah, and that's Friday's show. Again, the last show before the border war, which is Saturday at 2:30. Tomorrow we'll be right back here, 4 to 6, KansasNation.com. Hey, let's hear from a Jayhawk or two. Here's safety Taylor Davis talking about KU Mizzou.
Taylor, just start talking about your excitement for this week going on the road against a good team.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's going to be a great challenge to have a good quarterback, a good coaching staff, a good line. So we're just really excited about the opportunity.
Everybody's probably been asked about this, but what do you know about the rivalry
Yeah, Coach showed us a video about the rivalry and how it goes back hundreds of years, and there's obviously a lot of emotion between both sides, and we look to just keep it neutral and kind of just play the game of football.
Yeah, what are you expecting from the crowd there?
I mean, I know it's going to be loud. It's a hostile environment, but we're excited for the challenge.
Yeah. How do you feel like the secondary's played so far?
Secondary's been really good. We haven't been tested as much. This will be a really good game because we know they like to throw deep shots and things like that. So we look forward to the challenge.
Do you feel like you're kind of becoming a veteran, just your second year here, but bringing some of the younger guys or the newer guys under your wing?
You can say that, but there's always things to learn. I'm still growing myself while I'm growing with my teammates, so take that in accountability as well.
Taylor, first game on the road, obviously a hostile environment. Will that be a challenge?
It will be, but Coach does a really good job of preparing us and doing what we need to do throughout the week to make the game a lot easier.
I heard from Coach Liepold at the start of the week, kind of played a video for you guys to talk about the rivalry or some of the big takeaways you have from being someone from Texas. You guys
just the emotion, the Civil War and things like that go between both sides and the border. It was really good to just see the background of it, but we're going to do our best to just keep it neutral and kind of just play the game of football.
Taylor, when you look at their running backs and receivers, what do you see?
They're talented. They're talented all across the board. Like I said, it'll be a really good challenge for us and to see where we're at in the season.
What have you noticed from the young corners so far?
They've stepped up. We're all still learning. They're still developing, but they're getting better every day.
What goes into the challenge of playing?
Just being aware that he is mobile. I mean, we play a lot of quarterbacks that just like to pocket pass, and so just being aware of where he's at all the time and his ability.
The mobility, does that remind you of anyone you have played last year?
We played a couple mobile quarterbacks, so I can think of a couple guys, but yeah, he's super talented and we're ready to play.
You obviously played a little bit at K-State last year. How much does that experience of playing in a hostile road environment rivalry game, how much do you think that can help you in a game like this?
It definitely helps because you're playing rivals and they're rivals as well, so it's just to kind of build off that momentum you had last year.
You know how important communication is. How do you think you gain confidence? Right? Coach GK talks a lot about yourself and how important you are. How do you think your confidence in your own voice is growing?
Just learning the defense and knowing it like the back of my hand. So you have to project your confidence, and your volume does project your confidence in this defense.
DK was talking about sort of your journey a year ago, going from scout team at the start of the year, playing it as much as you did. How much do you try to express that to the younger players that, hey, you may not like your spot on the depth chart, but it's early in the year and things can change for you really quickly?
I express it every day. It's not going to be easy. There's no shortcuts, but if you keep being persistent and take the right path, it will come to you.
Was there a moment last year where you felt like things were starting to kind of trigger and roll toward you playing a lot more?
Yeah, as guys kind of got laid down or injured, I obviously had more opportunity, and I just had to kind of take advantage of that opportunity that I was given.
Coach DK is always talking about playing fast. What's the phrase? It's fast, physical, and for each other. Yeah, just kind of talk about that message and what that's meant to you and the rest of the guys defensively.
The guys have really bought into fast, physical, and for each other. I mean, we preach it every day. We see it at every meeting, so we're just really excited to kind of play for one another, and it's a family feeling.
How much of a challenge is it, especially when Coach has said in the past that you can make a decision, but if it's the wrong decision, then even if it's fast, it's not good enough. How much of a challenge is it to put that mental element aside and just play?
That comes with just practice and repetition of just learning the playbook and kind of being confident in your teammates and yourself. So that I would say that.
Obviously, John hasn't played that much. Is starting to play a lot more. How have you seen him grow over the last year or so?
He's grown over the past week, let alone last year. We have so much confidence in him. I'm ready to see him play. I'm excited for his opportunity, and we're ready for him to play.
Are there times that he kind of flashes and you're like, whoa, that's a little bit different?
Yeah, we've seen John play throughout practice, throughout scrimmages, so we know his capability and what he's capable of.
Do you feel like from an athletic standpoint, this defense compared to last year, you feel like it's a step up just with all the different guys in the room, all the depth you guys have?
I feel like the defense we have this year and the defense we had last year, they flash pretty similar things, and we're able to kind of communicate the same and move around the same, just taking advantage of opportunities on the field.
How about the offense? You probably don't get asked too much about that, but what are you seeing at a JD at practice and just kind of the leadership on that side?
JD has been consistent his whole time here, even when I haven't been here and coming up to school on visits. He's been the same guy every day, so he's a really good leader for this team, and he keeps helping us build.
You guys have a couple of people who've been around for a while on the defense with Keenan Caldwell and DJ Withers. How important is it for you guys to have those veterans around?
It's always important to have those veterans to kind of cool the younger guys off in like hostile situations like we're going to play in a couple of days. So they do bring around that veteran aspect of being able to cool everybody down and get everybody back on the same page.
You mentioned those hostile environments. How do you sort of take the emotion of a big rivalry week and have some productive results on the field?
You can't have your highs and you can't have your lows. You kind of got to stay neutral to the game and just focus on every play or everything that's at task and be where your feet are.
One thing you guys haven't really experienced the first couple of weeks is being behind and having an opportunity to, okay, we got to make a play here to get back in this. How do you think this group is built to bounce back from?
Coach DK has prepared us for pretty much anything, and we're ready for anything that comes. So if we're down, we're ready to make that play, or we're ready to step up as a defense. He's prepared us very well for that.
Some of those guys like DJ, who are some other guys that maybe help in that situation where it's like, all right, it's a new challenge for us?
Pretty much everybody. We feed off everybody. Everybody's energy feeds off everybody, and it might be him leading this play, but everybody's making plays, so we feed off that energy.
Thanks, Taylor.
That's one of the young players in KU's secondary, Taylor Davis, getting an opportunity. Didn't expect to have as many opportunities as he ended up having last year, but due to some injuries and some other things, he was out there, and now he gets a taste of the border war this Saturday, as does a local kid, Topeka product Deshawn Hanika, in his first year here in Lawrence. Let's hear everything Deshawn said the other day.
No, do you have any memories of this rival from when you were younger? Because you were one of the people who's old enough to actually remember when they came to a big play.
Yes, I am old. Yes, I did go to one game. I believe it was 08. I can't remember if we won or lost that game. I have to look it up. But just remembering the atmosphere there was electric. It's one of the great rivalries in college football that just doesn't get talked about for some reason. Probably because we haven't played since 2010. But no, it's a special thing for each state.
How excited are you to go out and get into that environment in Columbia?
I'm excited. I love playing in hostile environments. I love being on the road. Makes it feel like the team, we only have each other to lean on. So, it'll be a good test for our team, with how many new people we have here and new coordinators, and it'll be a good test for us to see, where we stand.
What's the most hostile environment you've played in, and how do you think it compares to what will be on Saturday?
There are some good ones. I mean, Lubbock is good, of course. They have their traditions out there, and the University of Iowa they're good as well. I don't know what to expect. I've heard stories from guys like Stuckey. So I'm really just excited, to see how rowdy it really gets out there.
What's the story Stuckey told you?
That's for another time.
What stands out to you on tape about Missouri?
They're big, they're fast. They got two really good defensive ends. Their front seven is really, really good. And, they got a lot of size in the back end on defense. But I think we feel comfortable with the game plan that we have. And, I think it's going to fall on us to just execute and play our style of football.
You guys played 4 different tight ends. Just how do you feel like your different skill sets allow you to be so effective?
I think I said it earlier in the year, but I think we have the deepest room in the country probably. We got 3 guys that can go start anywhere, I think, and then we got a guy like Leighton Cure who's just a Swiss Army knife. It's really beneficial to all of us that we can constantly rotate guys in and out and always keep a fresh body out there. And that's one of Lubick's big things is if the defense has to stay out there the whole time and we can throw out 2 new tight ends every time at them, it's going to cause problems.
Deshawn, at the start of the week, Coach Liepold talked about going through kind of the history of the rivalry for people that maybe aren't as familiar as yourself. What were some of the ways you went about explaining it? Like, is it PowerPoint? Is it just Tim out there talking? Is it using speakers? How do you go about kind of explaining some of the stuff to the students?
We had a really nice video put together for us from a lot of guys that played here and that were a part of this program back in the day. And, they basically went through from the history of it, of, where it started and, how it kind of built up throughout the years. And, I think the guys really grasped that video really well. And, they've also done their own research and seen their own things on social media, and they didn't realize how big of a rivalry it was until that time, and I think everyone kind of figured it out real quick.
Any names you remember from people that were in the video that talked?
Well, Stuckey was a big part. Obviously, you've seen his tweet or whatever that he put out that he hopes his kids never see that side of him. He was big. We had a lot of former players on there as well. But no, Coach Liepold will have to, if he'll let you talk, if he'll talk about it, then we'll share that.
Coach Liepold talked about wanting you guys to be enthusiastic more so than emotional. How do you kind of find that balance when you're in a game like this one?
Honestly, it's just another game. It's another box for us to check. To us, it's at the end of the day, the ball's going to be placed on a tee and kicked off just like any other game would be. And whether it's a rivalry or whether it's just a non-conference game, however you want to look at it, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. So just not to get too high, not to get too low. And I think we have a good balance of that on this team. And we're just going to go in there, play our style of football, and hopefully the chips fall where they may, and we walk out with a victory.
You got into the end zone for the first time. What does that do for your confidence heading into this game?
Yeah, that was a long-waited time. It felt good. I think my wife and my mom may have enjoyed it more than I did. But no, it definitely boosts your confidence a little bit. It kind of gives you that, hey, you're still here. You can still do everything that you know you can. So, no, it felt good. Happy that might be my easiest touchdown I'll ever have, but we'll take it.
Yeah, what was that like? I mean, I saw your hand go immediately up when you basically were just wide open. I mean, were you the first read on that, or was that kind of like an audible, just like, hey, Jalen, I'm wide open over here?
That was kind of just to throw the hand up, and hopefully he sees it. And, when you have a quarterback like Jalen, he sees everything. So, just glad to be on the same page with him, and, glad that he threw it out there for me.
Love that from Deshawn Hanika, especially talking about the tight end position group at KU. He thinks is the strongest position group in the country. We saw a bunch of oars there again,
Oh, yeah.
and I like how he put it, saying that the Leighton Cure, who is listed fourth, even though there are a bunch of oars, is kind of like a Swiss Army knife, and then you got the law firm of Brune and Grune to go along with Hanika. Carson Brune, I'm telling you, Dan, and shout out again to Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network, because he was on Carson Brune's side a long time ago. You could tell, even against Wagner, that dude is going to be in a lot of snaps. He's going to have a great career at KU.
Yeah, I believe he had the most snaps out of any of the tight ends against Fresno State. So, I mean, that shows you how much trust that they have in him to be able to go out there and get the most snaps. So I'm excited to see what Carson Brune is able to do, but also excited that Topeka native Deshawn Hanika was able to get into the end zone for the first time. He said it, long time coming, obviously going through last year with the devastating leg injury. Being able to come back and get that extra year of eligibility has been absolutely huge for Deshawn Hanika. So this is going to be really, really fun tight end group to be watching all year.
Yeah, they got great personalities as well. But shout out to Deshawn Hanika, married man. He's expecting a child in December. Hopefully he's having a great game on tap on Saturday in the Border War, which returns for the first time in 14 years. Talking a little Royals baseball, and we'll take a quick look around some of the action in college football after this. You're watching on KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City.
I'm DJ Withers, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
All right. Hey, let's talk a little Royals baseball and take a look at the rest of the college football week 1 slate. Didn't get a chance to do that yesterday. Obviously, we're knee-deep in Mizzou coverage and didn't have a show on Monday with the holiday. But first, a quick update on the Royals. They lose last night 5-1. They're just not winning enough games. It seems like throughout the season, all we've been talking about with the Royals is – okay, they're able to beat the teams they're supposed to, and they play average against the teams they're supposed to play average against too, and they lose to the better teams. And that's how you end up with around a 500 record. And I remember asking David Lesky from Inside the Crown, who's a friend of ours, and you'll see here on Rock Chalk Sports very shortly, that is this team going to end up 81-81? I mean, this is months ago. You remember me asking him that?
I do, yeah.
And here they are at 70-68, and there's still hope that the Royals can get a wild card spot. In fact, there's a lot of hope because they're still only 2.5 games back, but they're just not winning. Every time it seems like the Royals are on the cusp of getting into playoff position, something like last night happens where you lose a disappointing loss, and after losing 2 of 3 at home to the Tigers over the weekend, 5-1, the Angels get them. There are 5 more games on this homestand. You got 2 against the Angels and 3 against the Twins, both of whom are not great teams. The Royals need to go out. They need to win, if not all 5, at least 4 of them. If the Royals are able to go 4-1, then you're looking at a 73-69 record before you head out to the road to battle Cleveland and Philadelphia. If that happens and you're 4 over, then yeah, you've got a chance. Obviously, every year is different, and you're going to have an opportunity to climb up, but right now there's only one spot that you're really going for. The Yankees are right now the number 1 wild card in the American League at 77-61. Also 16 over 500 are the Red Sox, 78-62. Yes, the AL East is led by the Toronto Blue Jays right now, but the Mariners are the team holding on to that 3rd wild card spot. They're 2 up on Texas, who lost earlier today, and the Mariners are 2.5 up on the Royals. So despite, Dan, only being 2 games over 500, the Royals have a shot, but you've got to at least beat these teams you're supposed to, and then maybe find a way to get some extra momentum for a strong September.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best right there. You have to be the teams that you're supposed to, right? And the Detroit Tigers are not necessarily a team that you're supposed to beat. And all of a sudden, in this back half of the season, the Detroit Tigers has been the team to be reckoned with in the AL Central, right? At the beginning of the year, it was the Cleveland Guardians, and then all of a sudden, Cleveland Guardians have fallen now to 68-69. Meanwhile, the Detroit Tigers, they're at 81-60. Royals are 9.5 games back against the Tigers, so there's no real hope as of right now for them to catch up in the AL Central, but still gaining traction on that wild card spot, and they're right there. And I mean, like you said, I mean, I could see a world where they go 81-81. Honestly,
Ryan Bergert, who is a good addition at the trade deadline, he came over from San Diego in the Freddie Fermin deal. He is on the mound tonight against the Angels. Royals should win this game. They should have won yesterday with the pitching matchup as well. Got to get the bats going, because we've seen that when they go cold for the Kansas City Royals, they go very cold. But important rest of the homestand. A quick look, Dan, at college football week 1. We haven't gotten to talk a ton about it, but obviously Texas versus Ohio State was a big one, and Ohio State was able to win a low-scoring affair. What else jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean, well, just looking at some things in the Big 12, I mean, obviously the Nebraska-Cincinnati game was a lot of fun. It was at Arrowhead. It was 20-17. Cincinnati did wind up losing, but I thought there were some really good things to see out of Cincinnati's quarterback as well as their defense, too. And looking farther down sort of on the Saturday slate, right? I mean, you had some games who were really, really close, like K-State and North Dakota. Just an unbelievable.
Yeah, K-State had to come back on that one.
They did have to come back and win it by 3 points against North Dakota. They're not even the best team in their own state, and it's North freaking Dakota. So it's just it's absolutely baffling to me. You got to imagine that K-State's probably not going to be ranked soon, relatively soon, but there was a lot of games that wound up being blowouts, right? Like Utah, UCLA, former Pac-12 rivalry there. Utah just blew them out of the water, 43-10. Dampier is looking really good for Utah, so that's going to be maybe a little bit of a concern. That I think that Utah, they weren't great last year, but also they have a really good coach. They have really good core guys who are coming back for Utah, so they could be a force to be reckoned with. Also, Arizona beat Hawaii 40-6. Noah Fafita, still a believer. I'm still a believer in Noah Fafita. He went 13 of 23, 161 yards and a touchdown. They pulled him after a while. I mean, I don't know, something about him. I just like him.
Hey, elsewhere in the top 10, there were some great games. We mentioned the one between the Tigers and Death Valley. LSU, big road win at Clemson. And then the U holding serve at home against Notre Dame. Nice win for Carson Beck and company. Hey, it's Mizzou week. KU and Mizzou. We're going to have all the coverage you need on Rock Chalk Sports, kansasnation.com. Check us out on tomorrow's show. We're going to have Brian Haney. We're also going to hear from some other Jayhawks, DK McDonald as well. We'll have coverage of that. Really appreciate you guys watching. kansasnation.com. Shout out to Miles Schneer and Crown Automotive as well. For Gabe Boucher and Dan Courtwright, Sean Kellerman saying we'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks for watching and for listening on ESPN Kansas City.
I'm Justice Finkley. You're watching kansasnation.com. Rock Chalk.